Today on Gunbelievable, we're taking a look at the USFA Zip 22. No April Fools, it's really happening this time. Pull up a list of the worst handguns ever made, and this is probably at the top. Does it deserve to be? Let's find out. The Zip 22 comes in a basic cardboard box. Inside you'll find a Z-shaped chamber flag, cute, as well as the manual, a warranty registration card, a quick start guide, an advertisement for now-defunct accessory website zipfactory.com, and some warnings of what's to come. With mine, the original springs came in a plastic bag, and there's a card explaining they'd been swapped at the factory for target springs, more compatible with widely available ammunition. Bit of a red flag. The reference to lack of ammo availability will bring back some memories for those of us who survived the great .22 ammo shortage of 2013, the year this gun entered production. There's also an advertisement for an upgrade kit that will allegedly fix the litany of malfunctions you had if you tried to use a larger 25-round magazine in this thing. That's red flag number 2. The manual is my favorite gun manual of all time. The first page opens with, "Hello, I'm Zip," and the friendly, eager tone throughout reads like so many hip tech products from circa 2010. It touts every feature of the gun as innovative and revolutionary. On page 14, it becomes the first manual I've ever read to suggest doing a DIY modification project, or to use the word tactical. It spends a lot of time explaining in both text and in diagrams exactly how drop-safe the gun is. The last few pages are devoted to accessories. We'll come back to that. The Zip 22 has unusual dimensions. It's long and squat, kind of brick-shaped. It's about an inch longer than a Glock 43 at 7¼ inches or 18½ centimeters, but it's vertically shorter and way thicker. It weighs 18.7 ounces, or 530 grams when fully loaded with a 10-round magazine. That's light for its size. The thing is pretty much all polymer. Lots of Zip-themed text all over it, including that defunct URL. Picking it up, the first thing you'll notice is your own confusion. Where do my fingers even go? The answer is to put your middle finger in this extra guard here, wrap the web of your hand around the back, and rest your thumb on this ledge. Your ring finger can kind of grab onto this toe that holds the magazine release, but your pinky has nowhere to grip. It's unintuitive and not super comfortable. It feels as much like a brick as it looks, and this corner in particular creates a pressure point. Having to grip it from the very back makes it feel quite front-heavy despite its modest weight. Like the Laugo Alien, it does allow you to get your hand partly above the barrel, reducing muzzle rise, but that's about the only compliment I can give it. If you have big hands and long fingers like I do, it's manageable at best. If your hands are smaller, like Mrs. Gunbelievables, you can't keep your thumb on the opposite side of the gun and still reach the trigger. Instead, you'll have to rotate to an awkward claw grip that puts the base of your thumb on the back of the frame. It's insecure, even less comfortable, and it twists the gun so much in your hand that it's a little strange to try to aim with. Regardless of hand size, lefties have an advantage, because as a righty, you need to be careful that your trigger finger doesn't block this ejection port and catch some painfully hot brass. Some folks say it's meant to be held with your middle finger working the trigger and your index finger up top resting nicely on these sculpted bulges, but I doubt it, since trying that as a right-hander would seal off the ejection port entirely, and the inventor of the gun is right-handed. The Zip takes Ruger 10/22 magazines, which is an A-plus idea. They're cheap, good, and broadly available. The manual even calls them the best rimfire ammo feeding device ever created. You have the option of going up to a longer one, like this 15-rounder, giving yourself more capacity as well as leverage for your ring and pinky fingers, but doing that opens up your grip and makes your thumb less secure on the left side, so I don't recommend it. And larger magazines don't have the greatest reputation in this thing anyway. We'll come back to that. You have several options for support hand placement, but it doesn't really matter what you choose. They're all awkward. Fortunately, it doesn't make too much difference in the end. We'll come back to that too. My favorite is to put a Mantis X on the Picatinny accessory rail and use that as a finger stop. The trigger travels straight back, and its narrow, beveled shape funnels your finger into exactly one consistent spot, which is nice. There's some squishy take-up, followed by a stiff, mildly rolling break at about 9½ pounds, which is heavy enough to present some challenge for those with limited hand strength. The reset is short and audible, though not tactile. It's a bad trigger, but I've felt worse on guns with better reputations. There are a few other controls on the gun. There's a crossbolt safety up front, which works really well, operating with a satisfying click. It can't be engaged unless the striker is cocked. Wish it could be, but that's a common limitation on other guns as well. The magazine releases here at the back. Simply push it forward. You can't use it without breaking your grip, and mags don't drop free, which is fine for the longer ones, but presents a challenge for removing the nearly flush 10-rounders. Not exactly slick, but on this gun, what is? There are 2 trapezoidal bars up front by the barrel, which both manipulate the bolt. The longer one is for loading. After inserting a fresh magazine, you push that bar all the way in and let it go to chamber around. The other one is for restriking. Dud rounds are common in rimfire cartridges like 22LR, so if you want to try firing a dud round again, this shorter lever should push the bolt back far enough to recock the striker, but not far enough to feed a new round out of the magazine. Using either one means getting your hand right up near the muzzle, which is a terrible idea, extremely unsafe. They're also uncomfortable. The spring is stiff, it's a lot of pressure to be concentrated in a small surface area against your finger. And it's clumsy. There's no elegant way to do it, especially if you're trying to visually inspect the chamber at the same time. Unfortunately, the restriking bar is long enough to feed a new round if you really push it in all the way, and since you're only using it when there's already a round in the chamber, that will jam the gun up hard. So you'll need to pay attention and push it only 90% of the way, just until the striker cocks. There's a hash mark on the cocking bar itself indicating how far you should push it, but it's hard to see, doubly so while you're actually using it. Funnily enough, if you make the opposite mistake and push it too little, you'll accidentally activate a safety feature and disable the gun. The trigger will reset forward, but it becomes locked, and it can only be re-enabled by going back to one of the trapezoidal bars and fully cycling the gun. I don't understand the point of this feature when dry firing the gun would also disable the trigger. Maybe the designer didn't want to encourage dry firing, which can cause damage on 22s, but this gun has a damage-free decocking feature. To use it, you pull and hold one of the cocking bars halfway back, then pull the trigger. So, seems redundant. On the subject of decocking, when you do it, the striker does protrude through the breech face. If a cartridge had been in the chamber and were now resting on the breech face like this, that'd make me real nervous. I tested this with just a primer, and I wasn't able to get a detonation. The cartridge rim should need resistance from the breech face to detonate, but still, triple check that the gun's not loaded when decocking a Zip 22. If you want a clear readout on the striker's current status, you can check this window on top of the gun. Silver means cocked, so this is a reference point you can use to avoid pushing that restriking bar too far. As I try to remove this snap cap from the chamber, notice what's missing: extraction. No matter how many times I press on the bars, the round is not going to come out on its own because this gun does not have an extractor claw to grab cases and pull them out. Instead, it relies on some fraction of the gas pressure pushing the bullet down the barrel to also push the cartridge case backward and out of the gun. And since there's no bolt hold open, manually removing snap caps and dud rounds means awkwardly holding one of the cocking bars back while simultaneously shaking the gun until it falls out. If a cartridge sticks in there, you'll need a screwdriver or a cleaning rod and maybe a third hand. The sights are simple black irons mounted on a plate that unfortunately has some wiggle to it, which won't help with accuracy, but the plate is easily replaceable, and the manufacturer intended to offer all sorts of options, like a plate that took Glock sights and a Picatinny rail plate and some others. Not sure which of those actually made it to market, and those that did are scarce today, but thanks to modern technology, you can print your own at home, like this ghost ring setup. Removing the sight plate is the first step in disassembling the Zip 22, and helpfully, the underside of the plate includes both a kneaded Allen key and a cutout that serves as a barrel wrench. That's where the fun ends. I've only done a fast-forward montage for the disassembly of one other gun, the Remington R51, but today I'm doing it again, because while disassembling the Zip is less physically painful, it's much more onerous. There are tutorial videos for it, longer than this entire review. There's prying and fiddly little pieces and screws and springs everywhere. The end result is the array of parts you see in front of you, with this one, the bolt, being most mechanically interesting. Every gun I've ever seen uses a metal bolt, for obvious reasons, but not the Zip 22, it's polymer, which means it's quite light and cheap to manufacture, but it cycles super fast when the gun fires and might be most responsible for the way that the Zip infamously shoots. On that subject, when the Zip works, it's really fun. Being a 22, I wasn't expecting much recoil, but because the bore axis is so low, there's almost no muzzle flip. Even with such a poor grip, it's a satisfying plinker. I'm not going to say it's a bullseye pistol, especially because the sights on this one are off to the right and the heavy trigger doesn't help, but the gun manages to be accurate enough for the kind of shooting most people want to do with a 22 pistol, especially if you replace the sight plate with one that screws in rigidly to the mounting holes on top and holds an adjustable optic or irons. Of course, the Zip does not often work. I've been pretty lucky with mine, having gotten through a 10-round mag without any malfunctions 3 or 4 different times. More typically, I get a malfunction every couple rounds fired. Usually, a spent case fails to eject, getting jammed just above the next round at a right angle, like you see here. Without an extractor or a bolt hold open, clearing these is tedious and challenging. When the gun does eject, I've had hot brass get stuck between my finger and the ejection port once or twice, with the rim just catching in the gap between my finger and the frame, like this. Ouch. The internet will tell you that some ammo works better than others, or that smaller magazines work better than larger ones, or that you should stand on your head and lick your elbow to get this thing to run better. Maybe that's true, but this thing fails so much in all configurations that I don't put too much stock in any particular remedy. I've had my best luck using a 10-round mag and CCI mini-mag ammunition, but I've still had plenty of failures that way too. So who is this gun for? It seems clear that the Zip 22 was intended to be the core of a modular ecosystem. Some of the ideas were a little optimistic. One of the accessories was a reverse Picatinny rail, so you could hang the zip off the bottom of your rifle and gun while you gun. I don't think any Special Forces operators found that proposition compelling. Yet I'm much more positive about the core idea of the Zip 22 than most people. There's an ability to mount anything to it or on it. There's the potential for myriad accessories and modifications from USFA or third parties. With an MSRP of $199 and a street price even lower than that, this could have been a really fun and accessible project gun for enthusiasts to play with, especially once printing parts at home became more commonplace than it was in 2013. I think it was just 2 moves away from success. 1, fix the reliability, obviously, and 2, delete the cocking bars. Those have gotta go, they're uncomfortable and unsettling. Everything else, the awkward grip, clunky trigger, inadequate sights, complicated disassembly, it could have been overlooked or worked around by buyers ready and willing to tinker with a cheap, modular, quirky range toy. That didn't happen, so while the Zip 22 deserves to be called one of the biggest failures in gun history, I don't think its inventor was completely crazy, just mostly crazy. Since zip gun is a term for homemade firearms of low quality, I guess we have to give another point to nominative determinism. That's it from Gunbelievable on the Zip 22 from USFA. Smash that like button, be sure to subscribe. If I get 1,000,000 subs, I'll record myself firing this entire drum through it in one go, no matter how long it takes.